The NBA season is flying by and the playoffs are on the horizon, but this has not stopped the Philadelphia 76ers from continuing to tinker with their roster and add players to this team. Now, before I dive into the new signing, I do want to make sure you guys are smashing that subscribe button. That at this point in time, 70.1% of you guys watching these have not subscribed to the channel just yet. Coming down the home stretch of the season, got a ton of big plans I want to get into for Sixers Digest. Appreciate each and every one of you hitting this watch button and want to continue pumping out content right here on the channel. So appreciate you once again. And let's dive into the news of today, which is the Sixers signing DJ Wilson to a 10-day contract, sources tell The Athletic and Stadium. The 6'10" center forward has averaged 19.4 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 4.8 assists for the Ascolo Magic in the NBA G League this season. Now, DJ Wilson is a guy I remember back from his time at Michigan. I was pretty surprised when going back and looking up that was all the way back in 2016-17 that he was playing. He actually played on the same Michigan team that Duncan Robinson was a part of. Duncan Robinson not playing a ton of minutes on that team. This is a little bit of his transfer and his growth of an arc as a player, and obviously he's turned out far better than most could expect. But to me, DJ Wilson was a big part of that team and had a ton of success. So I want to start by looking at his college stats here. That 2016-17 is when he particularly shined, starting 36 of the 38 games, playing 30.4 minutes per game, producing 11.0 points, 5.3 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 1.5 blocks. Also shot 37.3% from beyond the three-point arc on 2.9 attempts per game. And that's kind of the archetype of player I was expecting him to grow into, is this stretch forward, the guy that is a capable three-point shooter, but still good enough to mix it up on the boards, block some shots. I was a big fan of what he brought to the table from a standpoint on the basketball court, but it has not quite translated to the NBA level in the way that I hoped and expected. And to look at his NBA stats here, he was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks and spent most of his career with them. 4 seasons with Milwaukee, played 119 games at the NBA level. Once again, most of his professional career coming in the G League with teams that he has bounced around to. And that final season that he played back in 21-22 was the last time that he stepped foot in the NBA, that being with the Toronto Raptors. Playing just 4 games there, not a ton of a sample size to go with for these overall stats here. But I do think the most important thing to note is him concluding his career to this point with the Toronto Raptors. And judging from the quick responses I saw from a couple members of the Raptors media, a couple other people, it's very clear that this is a Nick Nurse guy, that this is another guy that he has set his sights on. A little bit similar to the Jeff Doughton signing I will point to. Doughton, of course, on a 2-way contract and has played a handful of minutes for this Sixers team. I like Doughton and been impressed with him playing within his role and doing his thing to this point. And I think that's more of what we can expect with DJ Wilson, that this is not one of these lottery type picks where this is a low risk, high reward player. He kind of is what he is to an extent, but what he is a guy who's been around the league, been around basketball. He's 28 years old, so again, this is not a high ceiling prospect. This is somebody that you're hoping can step in and play a role, but I do think that speaks to what the Sixers are looking for right now. That is no secret the injuries they have dealt with. This has been a struggle throughout the course of the season. They need impact players, and while this is far from a glowing, experience and resume to have at the NBA level, this is still a guy with 146 games of NBA experience to his name, and that's something that I think shows what these Sixers are interested at this point. Now, I know that there's been a lot of news and attention attached to Kai Jones. I did want to touch on this here, that Gina Mizell of the Philadelphia Inquirer tweeting that Ken confirmed last night's report that the Sixers plan to sign forward DJ Wilson to a 10-day contract. It may not happen for a few days, however. Kai Jones is currently on a 10-day, signed March 15th, but strained his hamstring while playing for the Bluecoats. Now, I tried to get a direct answer on this by my understanding that because the Sixers are still at 13 players on roster, they are eligible to have multiple 10-day contracts on the table. Kai Jones, of course, dealing with that hamstring, and very unfortunate because, again, I want to be a Kai Jones guy. I want to be a part of his redemption arc where he gets his life and his career back on track. And frankly, I'm a believer in the talent that he possesses. That to me is the number one thing. When you have that, you can work through the rest with guys. That it's not as easy a transition as a lot of people make it out to be. That when you go from who knows what the backstory, the upbringing, and everything that he's dealt with, then just thrown a ton of money, a ton of opportunity, and basically figuring out how to live life, it's not the easiest transition for a lot of guys, and there's growing pains that each of these guys hit. I'm hoping that is the case with Kai Jones, and he's able to write his story and rewrite the future in the way that he sees fit. And by the way, he has quite a few significant plans for that. That he came out during his interview with Shams Charania saying that, quote, "I think I'm capable. I think that the best version of me is that the MVP, DPOY, and the greatest of all time. I think that I can do that." I love the confidence. I don't know if I would go that far for Kai Jones specifically. But again, shoot for the stars and you might land on the clouds, or whatever the phrase may be there. So I like that he is focused in on that. And again, I do think this is a little bit more of the case of a guy just tripping up and not being quite ready for the NBA life, and ultimately looking to rebound and get back on track. The biggest thing for me is, again, the talent. That Kai Jones coming out of Texas, I was a believer in. He's shown flashes even at the G League and NBA level thus far, and that's something worth sticking around and seeing with. Obviously, a lot more needs to be done behind the scenes, checking in on him, making sure everything is okay, and figuring out what the root of the entire issue that led to his departure from Charlotte was. But those are issues that these Sixers should be dealing with. And the basketball perspective, what he can bring to on the court, is the reason why you're doing this. But for the time being, the focus will continue to be right here on DJ Wilson, that this is a guy that is brought in with the expectation that he will play. So it is an unfortunate break for Kai Jones that he unfortunately will not be able to really show what he can do. Again, I would like to see him ink to another 10-day contract just to at least get a legitimate look at him. That realistically, we saw one game in a Delaware Bluecoats uniform, which I thought he looked fairly impressive in. You can see the growing pains, this guy who's been away from basketball for a bit, but the rawness and the ability to make an impact is absolutely there. For DJ Wilson, this is one of those 10-day contracts which I expect him to receive an NBA chance. So the Sixers were quite open with Kai Jones. The expectation was he would play out the length of that 10-day contract just with the Delaware Bluecoats. Again, I disagree with that decision-making process. That to me, Kai Jones, and I would throw DJ Wilson in this category as well, is they fall in the category of players that are too good for the G League, but you can't quite figure out where they fit in the NBA picture. So for Kai Jones, you know that he can dominate the G League. For DJ Wilson, you know that he can dominate the G League. The question is, what can he bring at the NBA level? And those are different stories. That, for example, a guy like DJ Wilson, who's averaging 19.4 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 4.8 assists at the G League level, those numbers aren't going to quite look the same at the NBA. That you have to adjust your role. Be more comfortable not getting the amount of shots that you're going to get on. The role of DJ Wilson from an offensive standpoint is likely shoot open three-pointers and fight for offensive boards. That's kind of the reality of the situation, and oftentimes why a lot of these guys have trouble making the transition. That it's a much different skill set from both the physical demanding aspect and kind of the mentality for how you have to go about the game for what you're being asked to do. A guy like Paul Reed, for example, struggled a ton making that leap. That when he was at the G League level, winning G League MVP, Paul Reed did, then making the NBA leap, you don't quite have the same leash to be able to go create your own shots off the dribble and do whatever you want to do on a basketball court in the way that was the case in the G League. So for the Sixers team, I'm about throwing these guys to the fire. I want to see what they can do at the NBA level. How can they adjust to this type of mindset change for what your role is within a team? The fact that Nick Nurse seems to be vouching for these guys and him bringing in his crew does give me some hope that DJ Wilson could provide something. And my final point between all this is once again to reinforce that I'm grateful for Daryl Morey for continuing to seek for these gems beneath the surface. For so long, I'm accustomed to this Sixers team just kind of sitting still and being content with what they have from a roster standpoint. That has not been the case this year. Daryl Morey has continually cycled through young talent and potential impact players and seeing what these types of guys can bring to this specific team. That is a great use of resources in my mind. You never know when you can find the next best thing or find a missing piece that could play a long-term part in the organization. And I think that's what they're going to continue to be searching for. So welcome to Philadelphia, DJ Wilson. I'm hopeful that maybe you got something left in the tank, that you can bring something to this Sixers team. And I do think he has a significantly higher chance of getting at least the opportunity on this Sixers team than was the case with Kai Jones. Now, could the 10 days come and go and we never see him on the floor whatsoever? That's definitely in the cards and a possibility for sure. But for the time being, let's hope that we get to see him in a Sixers uniform and a true chance to identify what he can bring to this team. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. What are your thoughts on Kai Jones, DJ Wilson? Do you have any sort of excitement for either of these guys? Do you think either one of them stick around? Do you believe DJ Wilson can bring something to the Sixers team? And anything else you got in your mind. So feel free to let it rip. Any video ideas you have for me, make sure you're dropping a like on this video, your comments for your thoughts, and subscribing to that channel once again. Appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. I'm going to talk with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.